We will go on next to Angel Cushing from Allen. Angel's been here probably longer than most of us today in the building, so thanks for back to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand in opposition to this bill. Primarily, $23 million. I can think of a lot better things to do with that money. That $23 million in this program that would have to come out of the general budget to make up the difference for 2025 cannot buy shoes for children. It does not save any of the hospitals in the state. It does not solve any of the tax problems that we are dealing with now. My understanding is we are trying to reduce taxes, not increase them. Furthermore, I cannot elect anybody on any of these NGOs that would be in charge of implementing these plans. I do not go into the voting booth in November. I do not cast a vote for anybody in Ducks Unlimited, Nature Conservancy, or any of those organizations. My understanding, the state of Kansas is the largest landowner in the state of Kansas. I would ask how much more money or how much more land do they need? What is that point of enough? They have enough. If we have a problem with recreation, why are we not expanding recreation on a lot of those park lands, Corps of Engineer lands, and other lands that have been closed off as preserves in our state? I have a really hard time with the whole premise of this idea. The premise of this idea and what I've heard a lot about today is how we need to educate. That means y'all think I'm stupid, or at least they do. They think that I'm stupid and not capable of managing my own land, and I need to be educated. And I would like to ask how many of them, people from the city, actually know more about my piece of property or my goat than I do. My goats, as you suggested, Mr. Blex, love weeds. I love my grass short. I rotate horses in there. Horses have upper and lower teeth for those that live in the city, which means they can go all the way down to the grass and they can pull out that root if you let them. So most people have them in paddocks, unless you're the federal government and you have a whole bunch of them running wild all over federal lands out west. So after I let them cut that short, instead of having to burn my pastures in the spring, I allow them to cut that short, let them weeds grow up, which feed my goats. Some of the conservation problems that I have is Lespedeza. While y'all call that a noxious weed, that's the best food in the entire world for my goats. But it's very hard for me to get a hold of because most land is required to cut it or burn it or spray it. They cannot bale it and sell it to me. That becomes an obstacle that would normally, without the federal regulation and oversight, would be easy for me to find. It's actually rather difficult. I am absolutely in opposition to this. I think that the money can be spent better elsewhere, and I'm getting really tired of people living in the city telling me how to run my farm in the country. And I stand for questions. Thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Cushing? If not, it will be retained at the end. So, very good. Thank you. Up next, Amy Sipple. Welcome to committee.
Thank you so much. Amy Seipel, Chairman and committee members, thank you for allowing me to testify today. So when a catfish in my pond sees a worm dangling in the water, he should be thinking, this is too good to be true. He doesn't recognize that fact, however, until a hook is lodged deep in his mouth and he's been stripped of all of his freedom. Likewise, we should consider, as you said wisely, Representative Murphy, that when the federal government dangles money in front of the states, there are likely hooks attached to those. In fact, the federal government gave $27 billion to the Department of Agriculture through the Build Back Better program. And Ag Secretary Vilsack said that this could lead to 100 million more acres pulled into conservation. Now, you may say that House Bill 2541 is not part of the 30 by 30 initiative, but if it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, I'm just saying. It may be an issue of semantics and other programs that are out there, but certainly programs like this are designed to pull more more of our land into conservation. And this aligns perfectly with the administration's statements. Of course, an executive order was signed as soon as he began his reign, saying that he was going to pull 30% more of our land and water into the federal government control. And by 2050, it's 50%. This also goes along with the UN agenda of 2030 of pulling out more of our land out of private control and putting it into government control. You have been elected to lead and to serve us during such a time as this. Protect private ownership and management of the heartland. Don't fall for the hook. It is likely going to be accompanied by stripping our freedom away from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seipel. Any questions? Stand for questions?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And one, okay, so you're a board member of what? Of what?
I am just a homeowner. I am
Okay.
a landowner.
I'm sorry, you said something about board member. Okay, I must have
Oh.
missed that.
No,
That's
I don't
fine.
think so.
'Cause it shows her just as a landowner. That's fine.
Yes.
Representative Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Amy, for testifying. When I read the proponents, we have 30 proponents in all, and most of them are this foundation or this coalition or this alliance and this venture or whatever. But yet, here you are, Kansas landowner, and I see that we only have 3 oral opponents, where we have pretty much 3 against the coalition.
Right.
When did you find out about this hearing?
Exactly. It was, and we have to take off work to do it at a moment's notice when ice is on the road and I live in Harvey County. Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to stop right now. I'm not going to go down that road. This was done, there's a long way to go. The reason why, who knows? This bill was proposed by this coalition. The hearing was going to be held because they were here. There's no malice in this. There's no hiding anything. This is one step of several. And I will not tolerate that you think this is some sort of shenanigan by anybody, proposal or opponent, that this is any sort of some sort of a rush through. I do apologize. We didn't have 1,000 people. And you know what? There's still time. So I will not entertain that to try to create anything that this is some sort of a rush through. I will not.
And that was not part of my testimony. I think we're just explaining here why there's not more of us.
Here's what happened. I understand the weather. We've dealt with an awful lot in this session. This was a more complicated bill than I assumed when I was asked, can we have a hearing on this day? If this day for all these groups would be 2 weeks from now, that's when we'd have the hearing. So I think as we move along, that if more people have opposition, I'm hoping that they will be, this is not the beginning. This is one side. We still have a Senate side if that happens. And so I guess and I apologize for raising my voice, but I want to make perfectly clear, there is no ram through. This is no one side. The chairman does not have a position in this. It was simply a matter of, that's the way it fell, okay? And so, and maybe you were going down the wrong, but I don't want to get into this, that there was somehow malicious intent on anybody's side. There wasn't.
May I address?
Yes.
So my point is that these folks were already prepared, regardless because the bill was already out there. The general public did not know about the bill. Mm-hmm. Many of these other conferees had said that they already had knowledge. That's my point. Not about maliciousness, not about intent, not about hidden accusations or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But how the public is left out of this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes,
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I think she was tired of hearing me talk. I know. Well, and I understand how the thing operates, and it was unfortunate, a matter of timing, that when this came to light's a bad word. When this was finally able to be read in and to have a bill, that in a perfect world, we could have had a hearing and nobody would have been here. So, I mean, this is not a perfect science, and in some things we have been known to do bills on the floor without any sort of a hearing. We have been known to push things in other committees very quickly, and again, there was no anything, and I don't believe that anybody's is an opponent to this would not have their voice be heard at some time. And so, the process is a bill gets introduced, it gets assigned to a committee chair decides what happens, and then if it passes out of committee, it goes to the floor, gets voted on by the committee of the whole, then it would go on to the other side. And the process starts all over again. Just because you have a thought on a piece of paper does not make it law. I know some people think that. Many Kansans also think that as a state legislator, you get paid what your federal delegates get paid. So we don't have staff year-round. We do many things on our own, and mistakes get made. We had a challenge the first few days of the session. We could not communicate with my new assistant via anything to get a calendar, to get anything done. And so I wish it was a perfect world, but we do the best we can with what we have. Are there anyone else here that is an opponent wishing to testify? Marcy, I apologize.
It's okay. I thought I received a acknowledgement that I was speaking, so it's okay.
I apologize.
You're
Marcy
right.
laughing. Go ahead.
Laughing. It looks like laughing, but thank you, Chairman
Okay.
Rajas and the committee for hearing me today. I too have driven over from Butler County, came a long way. Hopefully we're not going to have ice on the way back. I rise in opposition, and I rise as someone who grew up on a farm in Nebraska. As my testimony said, I was a farm kid, and I was visiting with someone in back. Conservation is just something you do as a landowner. I forget if I was fifth, sixth generation of our farm, and it has to be conserved, to be passed on. Waterways, we knew our land. I walked so many bean fields, I could tell you every row and where the badger holes are, and walked all of our creeks for the thistle. We know where the fox dens are. We know where the coyotes are. We know where the deer paths are. That's property owners know. We got some property in Chautauqua right now. I know the time of the year the eagles come back. I know where to be looking out for the rattlesnakes and the copperheads. As I sit here and listen, honestly, it breaks my heart, you guys, that we're at this place in our country that somehow we've lost sight that private ownership is where we want land to be. Government doesn't know better than the private individual how to do it. It never gets done as efficiently either. Why do we think government is the solution? It's not. It gets taken out of my back pocket. I don't get a say about how much gets taken out, except through my representation. Then it gets filtered to DC or Topeka or my county or my school district or my city. And then it comes back to me. And then they have the audacity to buy a silver platter with it and put on it some strings, maybe even a noose, and tell me it's a great deal. You get it back, probably 40% less, but we're going to help you how to manage it. We're going to tell you how to manage it. We know better. We're the educated ones. But no one has walked and done that field like a farmer and a rancher has. They know the yields. There's so many bright. You guys, do you all know that a combine can tell exactly where in the field it's lacking nutrients? And the yields, by acre, by foot, it's satellite controlled. And so that's why I rise in opposition. I'm tired of the tone. It's somehow government knows better than private individuals. And that we should be all clamoring to get that federal money back. The federal money is our money. It was taken from us to begin with. It came from each one of us, and that's supposed to come back to us and somehow do miraculously great things versus how we could have done it ourselves. Please remember why you're sitting in those seats. Your first primary role is to defend my liberties and my pocketbook. And please do not think that you have a bigger solution than what we could do privately. I said in the budget committee last week, guys, there's lanes for government, there's lanes for community, for neighbor, for churches, and there's just some things that are not government's lane. We've got to get back to that. Be people who care about our neighbor, and we go help them out. I grew up with that. A neighbor died, and everybody's been there. If you're from a rural community, you've seen it. Everybody shows up in force and harvests together, right? That's what we do. So I guess as I come here as one of the very few little constituents that came, I hope my voice represents many, many. And for those of you I know who are landowners on this committee, I hope I strike a chord with you. And I'm honestly, the one last word I want to say, this covetous tone and the language of collectivism, we are a democratic republic. We are not a socialist nation, and we are not about collectivism, and we are not about coveting other people's land. Thank you for hearing my testimony. I stand in opposition.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. And I do apologize. I didn't mean to skip over you. Anyone else wishing to testify as an opponent? Written only opponents include Dan Byfield from American Stewards of Liberty, Shad Sullivan from RCAF USA, Shanix, oh boy. She's a senator or a candidate? Anyway, Shani, okay. Omani E, Kansas Senate District Number 10, Sheila Sumter from Olathe, Tracy Barton from the Kansas Natural Resource Coalition, Coalition 31 Kansas counties. So, anyone else? Anyone want to tackle that question we had? How about if you have an answer, we'll pass that on to Representative. You go ahead, and then somebody remember it so we can tell Representative Shue had to step out. So.
Us country folk shop at Bass Pro as well. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Yes, Representative Minix.
Yeah, this is kind of directed at Representative Shue. If he goes to Bass Pro and buys some sporting goods stuff, I've got some nice land in western Kansas that he can sure come hunt pheasants. It's a lot better this year than last year. We've got a little more moisture and a lot more animals out there. I think there was a little bit of mention earlier about walk-in hunting. My understanding about 10 years ago, if a landowner wanted to voluntarily give their land for open public hunting, they got paid $2 an acre, and I don't know if that rate's changed. Secretary? Okay, and Wildlife and Parks would provide some signs to place on that, and then if you're out in our area pheasant hunting, you don't have to ask for permission from that particular property owner. But that was a voluntary deal for some landowners if they wish to do that, as I remember on that walk-in hunting program. Okay. Thank you.
Very good. All right, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 2541.